Welcome to Starting from Zero, the podcast where we talk with social media creators from all walks of life and hear their stories of why they started their accounts, how they built their audience, and how they turned their passion into their career. Everyone starts with zero. In this episode, I talk with artist and storyteller Wojtek. Wojtek has a really interesting story of how he got started sharing his content on social media. He started uploading to YouTube in 2014 to build a library online of his MMA training videos. When Wojtek and I got to talk for this podcast, he had just come back home to Cologne, Germany after traveling for over a year and a half. Wojtek describes his content as deep travel stories and is getting more comfortable with being the subject of his storytelling. While hearing Wojtek's story of building a brand on social media may have been why I reached out to him initially, this was a great conversation to listen back for myself as we expanded from social media to talk about life lessons and the pursuit of happiness. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Starting from Zero podcast.
Hi, man.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you doing this. This is really cool.
Yeah, I'm fairly excited and a little bit nervous though.
Oh yeah, no need to be nervous at all. We're just I don't know. I feel like I've been like doing this a few times now. I feel more comfortable, but I'm sure like coming new into it, it's like yeah. But I mean, it's just conversations and like just getting to two people getting to know each other and like why we do what we do, and it's super cool that you said yes in the first place. So
Thanks so much. I listened to the other episodes and I actually enjoyed the conversations you had.
oh, that's awesome, man. Which ones did you check out?
All of them.
Oh, no way. Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, I like to be prepared, so I didn't know what was coming up. I just said yes to it, and I'm just a guy who likes to be really prepared. So
Yeah.
I figured listen to it and just hear what you talk about with the guys. And yeah, Speaking of which, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I guess this whole project is basically trying to hear from different creators paths and perspectives on like why they actually got started, like because as an aspiring creator myself, I find it really interesting like why people actually start, and then you see like a social media account has a certain number of followers and it could be ridiculous numbers or like 200 people, but like how do they get to that point? And the journey of getting to some whatever number is like kind of just as interesting as the content that people are putting out. So I'm just trying to talk to as many people as possible, like different creative people, and kind of hear how they got started and why they do what they do. So
Yeah, I guess, I mean, that helps a lot. And it's looking back on what I've been doing so far and where I've come. I think that was like the biggest mistake I've made, and I now try to correct a little bit. I did not reach out to other people, but I was always trying to get with my head through the wall and trying to do everything myself. Where now I really figure out the more I get in touch with people, the more I actually exchange opinions and ideas, the further they actually push me.
Interesting. And so before we get like too, I can ask a ton of questions right off the bat, but just before we get too far into it, I don't want to butcher your name either. So how do you pronounce your name?
It's pronounced Wojtek. You spell it Wojtek, and it's Voy like in voyage and tech like in technical. It's a Polish name.
Okay,
Thanks
cool.
for asking.
Nice.
I actually hate that when people, just try to somehow come out of it.
Right. Yeah. No, I run into that all the, like, I feel like I would rather just have the person tell me, and then instead of even like trying and just make it
thank you for asking.
awkward. Yeah. And then where do you live? Are you in Poland or do you?
No, I'm living in Germany. My parents moved here quite a while ago, so I'm living in Germany since I'm 3 years old.
Okay.
Half a year ago, I've been actually traveling for 1.5 years. So I did not really have a base, but we're now back in Germany. Currently in Cologne. We just moved at the beginning of the year. And yeah, pretty happy to be here at the time and kind of, how would you say, take a step back from traveling and really recharge.
Yeah, definitely. So a year and a half of traveling and you're finally back in one spot for a little bit.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've been back in Germany for a month during the travels, but that also felt more like traveling because I came back for like a casting thing, and was a lot on the go. So this was not really like coming back or taking a break, but it was more part of the whole journey.
Okay, nice. And so for anybody who may not know you or your content, what kind of content are you putting out in the world? How would you describe what you do?
Yeah, my name's Wojtek, and my channel on YouTube's currently called Way of Pirate, but that's going to rebrand soon, actually.
Okay,
And
interesting.
I'm doing a lot of travel videos. I think I've started with vlogs, then it became travel vlogs, and now I've trying to turn them into more cinematic vlogs or actual like short films that have a theme or a topic to it that want to express a little bit more. And this is kind of where I'm transitioning as a creator or filmmaker from just doing random vlogs that are only about me to more meaningful films. And the theme under which I currently do what I do, I would call it deep travel stories. Because very often, I wouldn't say it's a vlog, it's not always a film. Sometimes it's just a story, and I'm trying to somehow capture that. But eventually, since that whole COVID madness, I will move a little bit away from the travel stuff. I still have like half a year of footage to edit and to work with. But yeah. Yeah.
That's quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, but I also want to experiment with new things and different things and really move on as a person and as a creative.
Nice. So I guess with this rebranding coming up, what kind of like series or topics do you feel like you want to talk about in the future?
I just want to make it more personal. So the way I approach this whole YouTube or creator thing is Way of Pyro, like there's a history to it, but essentially I think I wanted to hide a little bit behind the brand. So it's not my name, it's not me. Of course, it's my personality and everything I put in there, but I can also like duck a little bit under everything because essentially that's not my name and it does not necessarily directly relate to my name. And I want to change that. I really want to open up as who I am and work more and express more of that.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I can already see people like, you know, YouTube is like the most personal social media out there. Like people connect really with the person behind the content, and like there's so much out there, and like there's so many different versions of the same thing that people really just stick around for the person who's making the content. So I can see that being like super successful for you. That's going to be cool to watch.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I think it's very true what you're saying. I mean, there's a lot of strategies out there. And what I'm saying now is no strategic advice at always. I don't consider myself an online marketer, YouTube strategist, or whatever. I'm really just a creative who likes doing stuff, creating stuff. But I think if there's one thing in common, everyone who's having success on YouTube has is that it's the personality that actually attracts people. It's not, of course, it's consistency and thumbnails and all that technical stuff. But what I feel really often, it's the personality you as a person get attached to and you really want to see more of.
Right. No, I completely agree. And so for when you first, what was that like first time starting your YouTube channel? Like, why did you like make that, you know, email account, click create channel? Like, what was that process like for you?
So I got my first smartphone and had to make a Gmail account. And then I figured out, oh, cool, I don't have to make a separate YouTube account. I already have a YouTube account. And I didn't do anything with it for a quite long time. And then I just started uploading like sports videos. I was training MMA at the time and got into competitions. And so this was the sort of stuff I was uploading. And then I started experimenting with a few films. I got it wasn't even really a GoPro. It was more like action cam, like the cheapest you can get actually.
Okay,
really,
cool.
I think it's not even on the market anymore. And I started filming with this and making travel vlogs just because we went out traveling on our first backpacking trip to Thailand around the time. I think it was 2014 or something. And this is really how I started out. I just taking what I have and trying to make little films, little videos with it.
And do do you remember like the first time you ever picked up a camera?
The first time I picked up a camera is it's hard. I sometimes hear people like all creatives basically say something like, "Oh, I was 3 years old and I had my first camera and then I
Hmm.
started shooting and I loved it from the beginning." Uh, Obviously, I'm aggregating a little bit here, but I cannot really remember it being precisely a camera that put me into the creative field, but it was more just
Hmm.
the ability to tell stories with something,
Okay.
whether it is writing or taking photos or making a film. I think for me was rather always looking at or looking out, what can I use to actually tell a story, to express myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like I had like a similar thing. Like I was not like communication just as a kid like wasn't super easy. It didn't come easy to me. So like being,
Yeah,
these different creative outlets was like kind of how I was sharing my perspective or um yeah, it's just trying to tell a story, I guess, right?
that's interesting. What does that mean that communication did not come easy for you?
Um More like I wasn't able to put into words how I was feeling.
Yeah,
So um like if a tough situation would like come up in my family or like writing was a big thing, like journaling, I would do that a lot. um, and then I can like write my full thoughts like as myself in my own head, and um, instead of like verbally telling it to somebody, like this didn't come as easy to me growing up. So my different creative outlets is like kind of how I communicated what I was feeling in the moment.
I love that. And
Hmm.
writing is pretty interesting, right? Because
Hmm.
people very often think if someone is a good writer, he should also be able to be a very good public speaker or just put into words what he's trying to say. But I feel that writing is first. It's way more intimate.
Hmm.
And second, you really have the time to sit down and think, what do I want to write? Like, which words do I want to use? What like you've just been saying, what do I really feel? Like, which
Hmm.
word describes it best? And you don't really have the time to do that when you speak to one another.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
I
That's
really
that's
can relate.
yeah,
Excuse
that's
me?
exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, I really can relate to that. Even to this day. And in German, I'm quite eloquent, I would say, but
Hmm.
I'm sometimes having such a hard time to really express what I'm thinking or the idea that I'm making up or really just what I'm feeling.
Yeah. So do you like journal now?
Not at all.
No, really.
I think creative work is my personal journaling because I
Hmm.
don't really care about the format, whether it's writing, photography, film, whatever, but
Hmm.
I really just care for not even the product. I just want to put the ideas and feelings I have into something that communicates with another person.
Yeah.
And just as our world evolves more and more, I see myself maybe getting in touch with other topics or mediums in the future to actually do that. It's just that I've currently stuck with video because it combines so many creative aspects like
Hmm.
writing, music, speaking,
Absolutely.
photo, video. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's so crazy. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, just the progression of how humans communicate and
yeah,
how right now, like these, what, 7 to 10 apps on our phones just dictate how people are communicating across the globe. And just the advancements in technology and like how every few years a new thing will come up and all of a sudden everyone brings their attention over there, and like the word of mouth and spreading of all these different apps and technology, like it's just a wild like if you try to explain this to somebody, that I would have like this little box like 100 years ago, and I could message somebody in Germany and like just have a conversation with them would be insane.
yeah. They would declare you crazy and throw you off a cliff or something.
Right. But I feel like I feel like we have such a great opportunity to be alive during this time and like have this ability as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of people being skeptical or very critical about social media, and I am
Mhm.
too. Just just from that point of view that I think we have all these new technology, but no one really taught us how to use it. Not in terms of how to use it, but more in terms of how to integrate it in our daily lives and not get addicted to it and all that. We're trying to get more aware of it. But I also absolutely agree. It's just such a good time to be alive, even with the whole pandemic going on. I mean, if this would have happened like you've said 100 years ago, this may have wiped out humankind, maybe. But now we're just having this communication infrastructure, and we're basically aware of what's happening on the other part of the world if there's not some really hardcore censorship going on. And so we're just able to somehow, even though politically it may not work out perfectly, tackle that whole issue as a global community.
Absolutely. And like the way news is spread and like the awareness of, with a pandemic, like the awareness of people knowing to stay inside and that there's like actually something going on and being able to talk to friends and family instead of just being alone. I think that's a big deal to have that kind of accessibility right now.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like social media is also kind of exposed like humans for, like you were saying, that like the negatives of social media.
Yeah.
And it's like social media didn't do this, like people are posting on social media, like humans are doing this. So it's just the like communication tool that we use to kind of have more attention on like the maybe it's like the genuineness of humankind or like the not so great parts of it as well. It's just kind of exposing all of it, which is
and it feels also like it's multiplying it, right? Like there's so much more of it. You can really see everything that is going on there, like basically everyone expressing his or her opinion. I just had a thought, but I feel like it went away. The thing with socialists, and that's also a thing like Gary Vee loves to say, and you're a fan from what I know. He also says that like social media exposes people in the good and in the bad ways. And I just feel that with social media and this real-time communication, it's so much harder to keep your fake game up. If you're having a fake game, if you're living a fake life, if you're a fake person, you have to put that mask on every day. And I think that's just a really hard thing to do with social. You basically have less and less time to really escape that, where I feel that genuine personalities are kind of conquering the market in a way, quote unquote, just because they are not having such a hard time to sustain their personality because they just are who they are. And maybe for people like us who feel it like hard to express themselves in day-to-day life, social can actually help with that by, I do not have to, that sounds weird, but I don't have to talk to a human being or human beings in a group or face to face, but I can actually take my distance and do it. Like, for instance, this interview now, I imagine it being so much harder if we would meet somewhere in person and there would be cameras and there would be like a crew.
It's a whole production at that point. There's like a whole other set of nerves on top of that.
That would be nerve-wracking, but instead we can do this, for instance, and it's so much easier. From your point, from my point, it's just really another way to somehow try to find your way, even as a creative. I'm also part of the No Small Creator community, and you can basically see it so often that people struggle to put themselves out there, to start a YouTube channel, and what if it's not good enough, etc., etc. Where in reality, you can just start your YouTube channel. Like, you can do whatever you want. And you may get no views at all. But that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, because you can put yourself out there and experiment and actually see if people like what you're doing, if they don't like what you're doing. But if they do not like it, or if it doesn't reach people, that does not necessarily mean that you're doing bad. It just means that there's room for improvement, and that you might change something up in the way you do things. Very often when we're talking about the negative aspects of social, people complain about all those hate comments. And there's a thing Peter McKinnon says quite often, that if you get a hate comment and you feel it, like you're actually mad about that comment. It means that there's some truth to it.
Hmm.
And I found that very, very true. Like when I read a comment and I care for it and I don't like it, then the guy or the girl or whoever somehow nail a point that I have to work on or work with.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. Yeah. I just find it so crazy that people like they'll take the time to leave a hate comment, but there's so much content on the internet that like you are watching something that I put out there in the first place. I think that's crazy. And then for
So
somebody
true, right?
right? And then for somebody to take the time to leave a message like that. Most of the time I've watched there's like a whole niche on YouTube of like following up with my hater or I saw maybe it was a Vox video or something, like they followed up with a hater comment to like interview them and see why they left that comment. And it was
What?
super interesting. It was super interesting because they were like, "Yeah, I'm a fan of the channel, but I just felt like you know, it was like the critique, the constructive criticism, but they're like actual fans of the person in like the channel, um, but they're leaving hate comments. So it's or like I thought you'd never see this. I thought you wouldn't see the comment at all. So, but yeah, I find that nuts.
It is in a way, but it really comes down to people want to be heard, and I have
Hmm.
empathy for that. Like
Hmm.
everybody basically wants to be heard. Some people just have a very weird way to express that, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but it's the same politically speaking. For instance, like some people speak about, and we also had that in Germany, like a right push, like a certain party gaining momentum and all of that. But that basically happened because there's a whole bunch of people that felt unheard. And
Hmm.
I think as a creative to push more for a positive than a negative change, you can also kind of make it your goal to make people who feel like you, who think like you, just to make them feel that they somehow can be heard through your work.
Yeah.
And
Have you
I think,
found? Or sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, no. And I think it's the same with the comments. Like, of course, at a point, it might just virtually uh, be impossible to follow up on every comment. But I currently, as I'm a small, or as long as I'm a small YouTube channel and have a small Instagram account, I really try to follow up on everything, just to
Hmm.
give the people the feeling of, hey, I've I hear what you're saying,
Hmm.
I'm reading this, and I'm happy you're here,
Yeah.
even when it's a mean comment. Like I don't give
Right.
a
Exactly. Yeah. No, so I've been doing this since I think I started in like May of this year. Um, and I had my first somebody reached out and was like asking me for advice. And I was like, that's so cool. Like somebody found my stuff online and thought to ask me for advice on starting a podcast. And I was like, I'm not an expert at all. Like I'm literally just doing the research myself and like uh, so I thought that was super cool. And yeah, I just want to be like a resource for people to like start whatever it is that they want to do. Um, like I just hope that I can be an example of like you should just start and do your best with whatever tools you have available in the moment.
That's awesome, and it's really one of the reasons why I love your podcast, because
Mm,
there's just so many people out there who became successful in one or the other way, and you very often you have a hard time tracing back, like how did they get so successful. You sometimes
yeah.
look at those YouTube channels or podcasts that seemingly came out of nowhere,
Hmm.
and they have like 200,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers with 5 videos
Right.
or something.
Yeah.
But if you really look deeper into it, it started a whole lot earlier.
A whole lot earlier. There's so much. It's insane, like how much time people put in that doesn't get the attention that like the ultimate whatever
Yeah,
number like grabs people's eyes.
yeah. From my point of view, I also feel like there's some pressure for new creatives, entrepreneurs, or creators really, that you when you start out you really need to know what you want to do. You need to have
Hmm.
your niche, and you need to have your style, and you need to decide for your tech and all that, and you have to build it all up before you even get started, where I personally think that is shitful. You
Hmm.
should just start and experiment and really find your own way. I
Yeah.
mean, in that point, I really love the name Way of Pirate, even though I want to change it. But
Hmm.
this just kind of became my journey to figuring out, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? And where can I go with it?
Yeah.
And it was just that, like that episode of my story, if you want to put it this way,
Hmm.
where I really need to train the creative muscle. You know, when you have the hero's journey, like sometimes it's explained like in a cycle.
Hmm.
The hero needs to start, but then he also needs to train before he starts fighting off some monsters. And many people, I feel, just really want to skip the training part.
Right. They just want the ultimate goal, not to put in the work it
Yeah.
takes to get to that point. Yeah.
Give me
Um,
a sword, I kill that damn dragon.
yeah, exactly. Um, so for your name, Way of Pirate, what's the backstory of that?
Yeah, okay. Mixed martial arts fighting, that's where it came from. And
Hmm.
uh, I did have one pro fight. The other fights were just like amateur fights, which was a lot of fun at that time. And I just loved that whole experience. And I was fighting for a team where we basically always made jokes about everything. And
Hmm.
my first fighting name was Flying Lilliput.
Okay, cool.
So Lilliput's like a dwarf or a small person. I'm not sure
Hmm.
if that's an English term, because I kind of had a very playful fighting style, just always jumping around and making flying kicks and stuff.
Hmm.
But that was more like a very funny name, and I wanted to have a more serious name. And unfortunately, I had an eye injury, and that eye injury just repeated itself for 5, 6, 7 times. So
Wow.
people were actually sometimes even calling me a pirate.
Okay.
And I thought, that's a pretty cool name. I'm a
Hmm.
fighter and I need a decent fight name. So that was kind of that mindset I was in. Looking back today, I think it was a little bit silly. But yeah, so that's where pirate came from. And
Okay.
I thought Way of Pirate was a cool name, also because it had my initials like W and P,
Hmm.
my full name. And then I just stuck with it because I thought, I just loved that image of being a pirate of life and setting out into the ocean and trying to figure out what I want to do, following my passion, just having that pirate mindset in a way, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense.
No, definitely. And uh, it'll be very cool to see like the progression of your content as you take that same message and rebrand it a little bit and make it like, personal to you. Like you're just going to take that and grow with it truly. So,
Yeah, and it's just really about finding my own way, where I
hmm.
want to go with it and who I am. Um, yeah, and I just found that being such a big challenge, being okay with who I am, with what I do. And it
Hmm.
sounds weird because we're basically stuck with being who we are.
Yeah.
It's as stupid as that sounds, but
Hmm.
it's really hard to be yourself in this world where
Hmm.
basically everyone tells you to be something else.
How do you stay true to yourself?
It's a pretty good question.
Mm,
Um, I really try to examine what I say and how I behave as often as I can. So, um, if I catch myself saying something because I think someone else would like to hear it, I try to immediately reverse it and say something like, you know what, I actually think differently. Or, you know what, I just said that because I thought you would like to hear that.
mhm.
I really try to, I'm having a hard time finding a right words for this, but I'm trying to be disciplined with myself.
Mhm.
Not in a way of holding my mask up, holding my fake game up or who I want to be, but be disciplined with really being myself, with really being true to myself, with expressing what I like, what I don't like. For instance, for a very long time, I would get socially involved with basically everybody because I thought that's what I needed to do.
Mhm.
Now, after traveling, I found out that the one thing I love the most is to be on my own.
Mm.
I'm one of the few people who said, lockdown, it wasn't all that bad,
Yeah, I'm so
which
on
is a
board with
horrible,
that.
which is a
Yeah.
terrible joke. I apologize.
Right.
Um, yeah, but it's also just being able to, in these moments, say, you know what, I'm leaving, or I don't want to go out, or I want to be for myself.
Mhm.
Just really, every time when I feel that in here and I'm pointing to my chest and I'm meaning my heart. When something doesn't feel right, immediately reverse it. Not wait for life or for someone else to do the right thing or make the right call, but do it myself.
Yeah, I think that's
Does that
great.
make any sense?
No, it absolutely does. Yeah. I feel like
That's the best answer I have at the moment.
well, I asked because I feel like I struggled for such a long time to kind of own who I am and own my interests and like vocally like tell that to my friends who might have not have the same interests and feeling self-conscious about sharing, like doing things like this, because I don't really know anybody in my like daily life who is, like maybe they like watching but they're not very much into like creating their own thing.
Yeah.
So what was that process for you? For like, were you always around other creative people, or was it something that you like kind of kept to yourself?
Shit, like not at all. I
Hmm,
wasn't around creative people at all. It was almost the opposite. But the
really?
interesting thing is that there's something inside of me that really wants to that really wants to express itself. I
Hmm.
mean, that may sound weird because it's essentially me. I want to express myself.
Yeah,
I want to do this. I want to be creative. I feel like I can do it, and therefore I want to do it. It's the more I try to suppress it, the more I want to let it out.
yeah.
But I just had an interesting thought when you said that you are having or were having problems to own who you are, and that may sound like a superficial question, but do you feel like you really know who you are?
Wow, great question. Um, yes and no. I'm definitely starting to learn who I am, and it's by uh, trying things like this. And instead of, I feel like for such a long time, I let life kind of just pass and like go, and I never made the attempts, and I kind of like sat back and watched life happen um, for me a little bit. And yeah, it's just like, I feel like I get to know myself more as I put action behind my words instead of um, just saying that I want to do something and then it never happens. Uh, so do I know myself completely? No, I don't think so, because I'm 25 and I don't know anything truly in this world. Like there's so much more to learn. But I think if I like stay open to things as they come and like take advantage of opportunities and keep putting myself in situations that I like maybe uncomfortable, and like keep pushing my comfort zone, like I feel like I will eventually find what that looks like. Um,
Definitely, I love that.
yeah.
That's such a good mindset to be in.
Mm,
Basically, that may also help to yeah to stay true to yourself. So the one thing is really explore who you are, and I can relate so much to what you were saying. Like before I went on travels, I was stuck in a job that I did not want to do at all. I was
mm,
basically a clerk in the insurance business.
okay.
People would have asked me for years, "What are you doing? What the fuck?"
Right.
That doesn't
How long were you at that job?
9 years
Wow.
almost.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it was terrible. It
Mm,
was not a very good time. Though I learned a lot of I learned a lot, just really a lot, to discipline myself and work a little bit more organized. So there's not only bad to it,
mm,
but in hindsight, it definitely was not a good decision to stay that long in that job.
mm,
And it felt just like you were saying. It felt like my life was an autopilot.
yeah.
And then when I started to change things and make more decisions and take responsibility for my life, it was like I
Mm,
would finally put my hands on the steering wheel.
mm,
But then there was this other problem that I really had to ask: who's actually driving?
yeah.
It's I think in life very often we feel like we know who we are or who we're meant to be, but I feel that very often we're rather are the sum of how people see us or perceive us, like how
Mm,
people tell us to be or tell me to be. And over the course of the last years and even still now, I'm really just trying to explore, who is this me? who do I want to be? What do I really love? What do I really like? And which of all these things that currently are in my life are just there because someone told me that I need to have them, or that I need to be or behave that way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not an easy thing to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What was like one of the biggest takeaways that you learned from traveling for that long?
Oh man, another good question. I'm trying to not get too philosophical about everything, though I tend to be.
Same here, no problem on that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I
Yeah.
love that. Biggest takeaway from travel. I think it was opening up and recognizing that I probably had depressions for a quite long time and then anxiety attacks.
Hmm.
I didn't know I had those. I thought, and as stupid as that sounds, I thought it was normal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like, for instance, therapy or mental health in the US is treated a little bit more openly, whereas in Germany, it definitely has changed over the last years, but for a very long time there was a sign of weakness.
Hmm.
And so it never really got to me that I might have an anxiety attacks or depressions. I just thought I was miserable, or I was doing bad. And I had this quite intense experience in India where I had a like 2-day breakdown, like 2 full days of being paranoid and unable to hold a crying fit for longer than 5 minutes.
Hmm.
But I think that was just, I don't know if it was travels or if it was life really forcing to look myself in the mirror and to really explore also those depths of my
Mm-hmm.
soul, my mind, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
And even though this seems like a big negative, it actually really helped because I went through an intense anxiety attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like the worst about anxiety is that it feels like it's getting worse and worse and worse. And that experience just enabled me to really get to the peak of anxiety. And what I've realized was there's nothing more. Like once you get to the peak of anxiety, it doesn't get worse,
Mm-hmm.
which means actually it will get better then. And then just realizing that anxiety is really a product of your mind, and you can get over it. You can actually control it. And even though I struggle with it until today, I approach it differently, and I approach myself differently.
Yeah, that's great to hear. To like, take those experiences and learn from them and continue to grow.
Yeah. So, like, if there's a learning to that, I'm really not sure what I'm trying to say here. But if
Mhm.
there's a learning to that, it's that you should really, or I think that I want to try to always confront myself on those things. If something's not good, if something's not working out, if I'm not feeling well, I want to know what's going on and not look away and not push it away until it someday comes back to me and
Mhm.
really strikes me with full force, like it happened during that time.
Yeah. I find it super interesting that you said that like in America, in the US, like the stigma of mental health is a positive because for so long it wasn't. So um, I feel like that's progress that you can like see around the world, some sort of change in perspective. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. And I also love that people on the internet open up about it. I mean,
mhm.
it's very hard to not overshare. I hope I did not make myself guilty of that just right now.
Mhm.
Um, but it's on the one hand it's exciting, but it's also interesting. It also is helpful to see how other people speak openly about this, and you suddenly realize, oh, I'm not alone in this, which essentially does not help because you still might feel miserable. Just because someone
Yeah.
else is miserable, that doesn't make it better.
Right.
But you suddenly might see or feel that you are actually not broken, like
Mhm.
that this is almost a normal thing, that people also go through this and they manage to not necessarily get over it, but to get better, or to just to find a way how to approach life differently and better.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like those negative parts of your life, those negative experiences of your life, might dictate how positive the outcome of your life might actually be.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit like Gary Vee also talks about. It's like you need to face adversity. You need to face hard times in your life, and those hard times, I don't want to say they will make you harder, but maybe they will somehow make you understand more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I literally, it's like a goal of mine or dream of mine to get to talk with Gary Vaynerchuk at some point in my life. I think that would be,
Is that a goal of yours?
yeah, at some point for sure. Just because, like, I feel like my own internal voice was so down on myself for so long, and then to find, like, putting, he like talks about putting more positivity, and like he's kind of been my my go-to for that, to talk to the person who's like helped me so much. Like, yeah, I would love that opportunity. And so for, I guess, back to your YouTube channel and your rebranding, and what kind of message do you want to be putting out in the world?
Good question, easy answer. I don't know.
Mm,
And this needs to be okay. Like this sentence, I keep repeating it lately a lot. It needs to be okay. I don't really know what the claim of my channel should be. I know that the overarching theme is kind of humankind, humanity, and what it means to be as such.
mm-hmm,
um, I've expressed it for a long time through travel videos, just really trying to find a deeper perspective on travel experiences. Now I will try to do that with different films and videos, but it's not really like I exactly know what I want to do. I want
mm-hmm,
to, for instance, get more into documentary filmmaking, and the whole channel might totally change. But maybe
mm-hmm,
I'll just open up a second channel. Maybe I delete my YouTube and do something completely different and move into a hut into the mountains and
mm-hmm.
just edit videos for myself because that makes me happy.
Right.
Um, I'm not as much of an entrepreneur as I am an artist, I'd say. And
Mm-hmm,
maybe I'm not even an artist. Maybe I'm just a creative kid who likes to play around with stuff. Um, and therefore, success for me is really not measured in all those approaches on how I need to run a YouTube channel or how I need to run a certain thing. But it really, for me, it's really about just being happy with what I do.
mm-hmm.
And therefore, I almost feel like I don't really want to know. Does that make any sense?
No, it definitely does. Because the more because you're doing it for yourself, the more you do, then like you're just going to keep showing up and like making yourself happy because of your art, and like that's why you do it. So
Yeah, and also I don't feel stuck with my content.
mm-hmm,
I imagine some people like starting a YouTube channel and having a really, really good idea. And they are able to make a living out of it. And within a year, they reach like 1 million subscribers and everything is awesome. And YouTube's finally their career. And then they realize just a year and a half later that they hate that content.
mm-hmm,
They hate that theme, that topic, and now they're kind of stuck with it. I mean, of course, you can always sell it, but especially like we just said in the beginning, YouTube is something very personal. That might be hard. And I don't know how many people actually are self-aware enough at that moment when they're stuck and when they feel miserable with their success, quote unquote,
mm-hmm,
um, to to recognize that they don't want this. But it might rather be the other way around, like it very often is in a 9-to-5 job, right?
mm-hmm.
You're just stuck with that job, and that's your life. And what are you supposed to do? Like this is how a lot of us have been feeling over the longest time, right? Um, yeah, so this is kind of what I'm also trying to avoid, just being stuck with something I don't want.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know the answer to this question just based off how we've been talking, but then I'll ask it anyways. But just to go off of what you just said, then what does success look like to you in your creativity, or I guess in life?
it's happiness.
Yeah,
Just
that's exactly what I thought you would say.
I mean, it almost feels overused saying this, but
Hmm.
it is not, in the way that happiness means something very different for each individual out there.
Hmm.
For me, happiness is something very different than it is for you, or it might be,
Hmm.
and so it is for everyone else. And happiness also is not that thing. Like, I very often compare happiness to freedom, and I made a short film about the meaning of freedom. And what I've realized through the making of this film with people from around the world is that freedom is this concept that we're very often trying to grasp, or to get a hold of. But you cannot really do that because there's not like one definition of it. And the same is just with happiness. And there's also this ambivalence, this ambiguity that if you don't feel miserable at times, if you don't feel bad at times, if you don't have a breakdown in the middle of India where no one speaks English and your credit card is blocked,
Oh man.
it will be so much harder to experience like real, genuine happiness.
Hmm.
If you would be happy all the time, like literally all the time, you would stand up happy every day, it would become normal, and therefore you would not feel happy anymore, but
Hmm.
just regular, just normal. And I just try to keep that in mind. So even when bad stuff happens, even when challenges arise, I really try to see opportunities in those and understand that while it's currently bad now, or while I might feel miserable now, I might get to feel happy again at another point if I work through this.
Yeah. No, that's like, yeah, I totally can see that. And so like now that you have all those lessons from traveling and like knowing that happiness, like whatever that may mean to you, like how do you implement all of that now that you're not traveling and those experiences are behind you? Like how do you uh, put them into your daily life going forward?
That's such a good question. I think a lot of travelers actually might struggle with, especially during this time.
Hmm.
Um, I feel that a lot of travelers define themselves by traveling, which, in my opinion, is, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. I think this is a mistake because traveling is not who you are. Traveling is something that you do.
Hmm.
And currently, not being able to travel and having almost something like a regular job really is the best challenge and learning experience for myself to put everything I've learned over the course of travels and of experiencing this unique time and form of freedom to use to really challenge. Okay, did I really learn something, or did I just make it all up because I had such a good time?
Right. No, that's so funny you say that because I'm kind of going through a similar situation myself right now. I had a corporate job that I got right out of college in 2017 that I stayed in for 2 years. Um, and, just was kind of unhappy with the corporate aspect, but really like the people that I worked with. So I, enjoyed that aspect of it. But then I just had this moment where I knew like if I did not make a change now, I could see myself staying like comfortable in that job for a while. And so I just the timing worked out where yeah. Um, and it's like, you have this, a similar experience in the insurance world. And um, like, I think it's so awesome for people who do like go outside their comfort zone, take that step and like just travel because they want to see the world during their lifetime. And that's what I did. So I used teaching English as a way to go abroad. And I taught English in Israel for a little bit. And then I like traveled around. I got to go to Eastern Europe a little bit. And now I came back in February of this year. Um, didn't have a job for like 4 months. And then I just got employed like maybe 2 months ago. So like I'm like almost a full year of traveling and like the freedom that comes with that. And then like now I'm back in routine and structure, and it's challenging. It's like it's hard when you go from that all the way to like a whole new environment, um, and like kind of back in a corporate esque environment.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of realizing that I'm enjoying, like I'm very glad that I was able to take, go on those travels, especially while the world was open and I could go to those places. And now I'm like taking on the challenge of structure and, that 9 to 5, and then doing things like this as much as possible, and continuing to make it a priority. And um, yeah, it's a whole different challenge, and I'm like kind of feeling like I'm in a good groove, and I'm excited to see what the future holds with it.
I really feel that, and I love what you're saying. So now that you're saying it, I just recall something that I was talking with my fiance about a lot. Like the biggest challenge probably is when you come back from travels, is
Hmm.
not to go back to traveling or to figure out how to deal with being back, but it's really to kind of meld the two personalities you kind of have, that traveling self and that I don't know, probably not corporate self, but like who you are when you have a certain routine, like really meld those two together and figure out what is
Hmm.
this new personality that can come out of that.
Definitely. And
So what,
traveling, or go
yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
no, I was just about to ask,
Mhm.
what is your biggest takeaway from travels been?
Yeah, well, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was going to say. So, so
There
my,
we go.
yeah, we're on the same page. I think my biggest takeaway is just truly a reminder of like how small and insignificant um, I am, but also that I have a voice to share. Um, and like you mentioned how everybody has a voice and like wants to be heard. Like I've definitely found that as well as I talk to different people around the world, and um, like everybody has a story to share, and they want someone to tell that story too. And uh, like I got to be, like I was in Israel and experiencing like what culture is like there and what life is like there. But now I'm back in Florida, and life still goes on in Israel. Like the people are still continuing on with their lives, who I have never met, and they have no idea who I am. So like realizing that like how small we are, and like that we truly if we truly should be doing the things that we want to do in life, because uh, like we all want to like make an impact, or like uh, yeah, I just think like I've learned like I should be doing what I want to do, because no one truly cares, no one really may really remember me or like what I've done. So you just keep continuing to make for yourself. This if that makes sense, just like they're like, I don't know.
No, totally.
Yeah.
It absolutely makes sense to me. So here's something I was thinking about this month. Very often, if you do something for yourself in life, if you really concentrate on yourself, of where you want to go, etc., people will come up to you and tell you that you're egoistic or egocentric. But what many people do not realize, and that accounts for NGOs, that accounts for volunteers, that accounts for everyone who says, I want to make an impact for the sake of someone else.
Hmm.
Essentially, you're doing this for yourself. You're always doing this for yourself, no matter how altruistic you actually are. The most altruistic act you as a human being can actually do is someone else carry on with their life without judging them. And so, again, this needs to be fine. It needs to be fine to do something for yourself. It needs to be fine to make your own decisions. Of course, you shouldn't hurt someone else, or I don't know, put them into misery or whatever, but it just needs to be fine. It needs to be fine to do something for yourself and figure it out by yourself. So I
Yeah.
think you had an incredible learning there, an incredible experience, and I love that takeaway. I also love that you're saying that we, like each individual, are so small, but
Hmm.
small doesn't equal insignificant.
Hmm. Yeah. I agree. Um, like small in the sense of like I am just one person, and that when you think of the vast just how many people there are in the world and how many different stories are being lived out. And like, this is the story and like life that I get to live. Like, I think that's really cool. And so I've also found, just like having talked to people, that there's a big, I'm sorry, my dog is whining like in the corner. I don't know if you can hear it. I'm gonna go pick him up and I'll be right back. But
Sure.
All right.
Oh, wow.
He just wanted to. I think he just wanted to chill.
Cuddle a little bit.
Yeah. So from talking to people around the world, like I found that not like people don't know, nobody knows what they're doing. Everyone's just trying to do the best with what they have in front of them.
Yeah.
And like same here. Like I have no idea. I'm just trying different things, and I feel like I like that I've tasted like different things in my few years since graduating college to kind of try and find what I actually like to do. And like I've been trying this and I found this, and I feel like it's something that I want to keep pursuing. So like I'm glad that I took that first step and started. And like I said earlier, like the goal of this project and like what I want to put out in the world is like that you should start that thing. And I hope to show through example, like to motivate other people to try their thing as well, whatever that may be.
Absolutely. And I think you're doing everything right. Like the advice your interview guests have given you so far are just so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And you're connecting with those people, you're genuinely asking them, you're not being arrogant, approaching the whole thing like I watched 10,000 hours of Gary Vee. I know what, yeah, come on.
Right.
No, but you're approaching it genuinely humble. And that's really the best thing you can do. And you're giving people the possibility to join that journey, to really see how you started out and where you're going from here on out. And if in a year, 2 years, 3 years, it's not going to be podcast anymore, or it's going to be a whole different show or whatever, it's got to be fine. That needs to be okay.
That's the fluidity that you were talking about, and like that's I'm excited for that as well. And like I have a bunch of other ideas for the channel, like whatever kind of content that I want to do. But I feel like I wanted to focus on one thing when I started, and just kind of see where it would go. And I'm excited to like continue the podcast while branching out into other content ideas.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it grows.
Yeah, thank you. So I got one more question for you, and I'll let you go. So for I feel like I end each podcast with this one, but for anybody who may be looking to start, maybe it's on social media, maybe fill in the blank, whatever it is. For anybody looking to start out, what kind of advice would you give somebody today?
I'd say, I don't know if that's practical enough. If it's not, feel free to ask me the question again. But I would say, if there's something you really want to pursue or you really want to do and you do not feel ready for it, look for a challenge. Look for that little something you might start with, and then take the next biggest challenge. That challenge where you feel, oh, this is too early for me. I cannot do this yet, and do this instead. One of my favorite films, the What is Freedom film, like I didn't feel ready for this at all. And it took me over half a year to actually execute on it. And at the point I started with it, I wasn't ready. At the point I finished it, I still wasn't ready. But I was just up for it. I was myself. I was never a filmmaker. I never really learned that. Look, before going on travels, before starting a YouTube channel, I wasn't even working in the creative field. Mm-hmm. Never. But I started just doing those things. I just showed up for the challenge, and I threw myself in there, not knowing what would be happening. So I was just speaking about being humble, and I really try to be more humble. But there's a certain kind of arrogance I think you have to bring with you, where you feel like, oh, I can do this. This challenge is too big for me. That's a little bit too big to bite off, but I'll try. So I think that's the best thing you can do, not only to start out, but to accelerate your growth.
Yeah.
There's an awesome video from Johnny Harris. I unfortunately cannot recall what the exact title is, but where he speaks on how he actually got into motion graphics. And he basically did that by reaching out to, I think it was a university, and telling them that their onboarding or recruiting video sucked and he can do it better. And suddenly found himself in this challenge of showing that he can do it better.
Wow.
So that's what I would recommend if you want to start out. Seek yourself a challenge that's a little bit too big, but not impossible to actually overcome, and just give it a go. Just try.
Yeah, kind of prove to yourself that you do have the skills, like you do have what it takes to
that you can
take on those projects. Yeah,
that you can outgrow yourself.
And it's a mindset shift as well. It's like putting yourself outside your comfort zone, like really pushing yourself to try new things. And yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally. It's like basically, just imagine it like this. If you're trying to get out of your comfort zone, just dipping your toe into the cold water won't do it, because you might actually not jump in because it's too cold. But if you jump in, you're just out of the comfort zone.
Right. You're in it.
Yeah, you're in it. And now you can go. Now you can take a swim, and now you can really start.
Right. Oh, I think this has honestly been one of my favorite conversations so far. Like, we touched on social media, but so much more. And I love that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you taking the time, man, to do this. And I look forward to seeing what you're putting out in the world in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, I'll let you know when this gets posted, and I appreciate you talking with me, man.
Yeah. Thanks again, man. Have a good day, man.
Yeah, you too. It's good to meet you.
Yeah. Bye.
All right. See ya. Thank you so much for listening to the Starting From Zero podcast. A big thank you to Wojtek for sharing your story. And if you want to check out more of his work on social media, you can find him at Just Wojtek. Lastly, if you made it to the end of this podcast, I truly appreciate you sticking around and giving your time to listen. I hope you're getting as much value as possible from these podcasts. I really enjoy doing them, and I'm learning a lot myself along the way. If you want to check out more from the Starting From Zero project, all you have to do is search Starting From Zero. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.